It was just another normal day when I noticed something strange. My barn was missing a crate. But it wasn't just any crate. This one was filled with stuff that meant a lot to me. I had no idea who could have taken it, but when I found out who was behind it, I couldn't believe it. My own HOA Karen. You know, the type of neighbor who's always complaining about everything, always sticking her nose where it doesn't belong. At first, I thought it was just a misunderstanding. Maybe she accidentally took the crate, or maybe she thought it was up for grabs. But when I confronted her, the situation quickly escalated into something far more bizarre. To my shock, not only did she deny taking it, but her behavior grew more erratic. And that's when I noticed something in the distance. FBI cars, dozens of them, pulling into the neighborhood. I was stunned. What did this Karen have to do with the FBI? Why were they showing up at her house? Was it all connected to the crate she took, or was there something even bigger going on? Trust me, you're going to want to stick around to find out what happens next. This is one story you won't want to miss. The FBI cars weren't just a coincidence. I could feel my heart racing as I watched them park up and down the street. It was like a scene out of a movie, but this was my reality. I couldn't wrap my head around it. What was Karen involved in? What did she know? The more I thought about it, the more confused I became. I mean, she was always meddling, always causing trouble, but I never expected anything like this. It all started months ago when she first moved into the neighborhood. At first, she seemed like any other neighbor, friendly, polite, always smiling. But over time, that smile started to feel more like a mask. She became obsessed with the HOA rules, pushing them on everyone. If you didn't mow your lawn the exact right way or painted your fence the wrong shade, she'd be the first to report you. It was maddening. But what did that have to do with an FBI investigation? That's what was eating me up inside. I thought back to the crate. It had been in my barn for months, just sitting there, a collection of old items I never bothered with. Karen had always been nosy, always looking for anything to criticize. But I never imagined she'd take it, let alone get the FBI involved. I had to find out more. Was she working with them? Or was she in over her head? Something was definitely off, and I was going to get to the bottom of it. As the FBI cars sat idling outside her house, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was connected. Karen's obsessive behavior about the neighborhood rules never made sense. Why was she so fixated on small things like garden gnomes and property lines? It was like she was hiding something bigger than just being a typical HOA watchdog. But what? I needed answers. I decided to take a closer look at the crate. Maybe there was something inside that could explain the strange attention Karen was getting. I rushed back to the barn, where the crate had once been. To my surprise, it wasn't empty. It had been rifled through, but it looked like someone was trying to hide what was really inside. A few things were missing, and it wasn't just old junk anymore. There were a few items that clearly didn't belong. A stack of old documents, a few sealed envelopes, and something that looked like a high-tech device. That's when the real questions started to surface. What were these items? Why would Karen want them? And how did the FBI get involved? It didn't take a genius to figure out that the missing items could be a part of something illegal, something much bigger than I could have imagined. I started looking around, trying to figure out who else in the neighborhood might know anything. That's when I bumped into Greg, a guy who lived 2 houses down. He was always quiet, but today he was looking nervously over his shoulder as if he knew something was coming. When I asked him about Karen, his face turned pale. "You don't know what she's into," he whispered, glancing around. "She's not just some HOA crusader. She's involved with things she shouldn't be. Things that could get us all into trouble." I could feel the weight of his words hanging in the air. What had Karen really been up to, and how deep did this all go? I wasn't sure I was ready for the truth. The more I thought about Greg's words, the more I couldn't shake the feeling that I was way in over my head. The neighborhood, once so calm and peaceful, suddenly felt like a pressure cooker about to explode. I needed to find out what Karen had really been up to, but I wasn't sure who I could trust. Greg had clearly been spooked, but I couldn't get anything else out of him. He was nervous, and I had a feeling he knew more than he was letting on. I decided to do what I should have done from the beginning, go straight to Karen's house. I didn't have much time. The FBI cars were still parked outside, and there was a sense of urgency in the air. Whatever was happening, it felt like it was spiraling fast. As I walked down the street toward her house, I noticed that the FBI agents were talking to neighbors, taking notes, and asking questions. They weren't just there for a simple investigation anymore. Something big was unfolding, and I had a feeling it had something to do with that crate. I got closer to her house and saw her standing outside, her arms crossed, looking unbothered. She didn't seem worried at all, like she was in control of everything. But that was the problem. She was always in control. I couldn't shake the feeling that she had orchestrated something much bigger than I could comprehend. Before I could make a move, I heard a voice behind me. "Don't go near her." It was Greg again, his voice barely above a whisper. He grabbed my arm and pulled me aside, his eyes wild. "You don't understand. If you push her, you're going to make things worse. The FBI's just the tip of the iceberg." I could feel my pulse quicken. What was he trying to say? What could be worse than the FBI? Whatever Karen was involved in, it was something dangerous, and now I was too close to back out. Greg's grip on my arm tightened, and I could see the fear in his eyes. It wasn't just about Karen or the FBI anymore. Whatever was going on, it was much more dangerous than I had imagined. "You need to leave," he urged, his voice barely audible. "This isn't a game. You don't know what you're dealing with." I pulled away, heart pounding in my chest. "What are you talking about, Greg? What's really going on?" I couldn't let this go. I needed answers. Greg glanced around nervously, like he was making sure no one was listening. He lowered his voice even more. "She's not just some HOA fanatic. She's involved in something illegal, really illegal. I'm talking about underground networks, government secrets. This crate, it wasn't just junk. It was evidence of something big. I thought it was all over after they came for her, but now." He trailed off, glancing over his shoulder at the FBI agents still standing near Karen's house. Suddenly, the air felt colder. A chill ran down my spine. "What he's saying is Karen, working with criminals." My voice was shaking now, the pieces finally starting to come together. Greg didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked down at the ground, swallowing hard. Then, in a voice that barely escaped his lips, he said, "She's been running a double life. I didn't think anyone would find out, but now they have. And they're coming for all of us." Before I could respond, there was a loud sound, something heavy slamming against the ground. I turned to see a black SUV screeching to a stop right in front of Karen's house. The doors swung open, and two men in dark suits stepped out, their faces unreadable. The tension in the air was palpable, like the calm before a storm. I looked back at Greg, but he was already backing away, his face pale. "You need to leave now. They'll come after you too if they know you're asking questions." But it was too late. One of the men in suits had already spotted me, and he was coming straight toward me. The man in the suit was getting closer, and I could feel my heart racing. He wasn't just walking casually, he was moving with purpose. Every step felt like it echoed in my chest. The others, the FBI agents and Karen, were too distracted to notice me now, their attention focused on the black SUV and the new arrivals. I turned to run, but my legs felt like they were made of stone. This wasn't how I thought this would go. I'd started this with one simple question about a crate, but now it felt like I was in the middle of something far bigger than me. "Hey!" The voice behind me stopped me dead in my tracks. It wasn't Greg, though. It was one of the men in the suits. I turned slowly, and there it was, the cold, calculating look in his eyes that made my stomach drop. "Come with us," he said, his voice low but firm. "We have some questions we need answered." I felt a bead of sweat form at my temple. "I don't know anything, I just—" "You know more than you think," he interrupted, "and you've already seen too much." I tried to back away, but his hand shot out, grabbing my wrist with a grip so strong it almost hurt. As he pulled me toward the SUV, everything I thought I knew about Karen, about the FBI started to unravel. What had started as a simple neighborhood dispute had morphed into something far more sinister. But just as I thought I was going to be hauled off into whatever secret mission these men were involved in, something even more unexpected happened. A second SUV pulled up, and this time it wasn't more men in suits. It was a woman, a familiar woman, stepping out. It was Karen. She was smiling. But it wasn't the smile of someone who'd just been caught. It was a smile that sent a chill through my veins. "You didn't think I'd let you walk away, did you?" she said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. The man holding my arm turned to her, surprised. "You told us you were done with this." Karen's smile never wavered as she stepped closer. "Did you really think I'd let this go that easily?" she asked, her tone sharp, confident. "You've been playing right into my hands this entire time." I stared at her, disbelief mixing with a rising sense of panic. You were behind all of this." Karen chuckled. "Not just behind it. I was leading it. You've been chasing shadows while I've been making moves in the dark." And then it hit me. The crate, the documents, the FBI presence, they were all part of her game. The neighborhood wasn't just a place for her to enforce petty rules. She had orchestrated this entire situation to manipulate everyone, to draw attention away from her real objective. What I thought was an investigation had been a carefully crafted distraction, and now I was caught right in the middle of it. Before I could fully process what she was saying, one of the agents in the first SUV pulled out a file, showing it to Karen. "The plan's in motion," he said quietly, though the tension in his voice was unmistakable. Karen turned to look at me, her eyes glinting with something I couldn't place. "You were never meant to get this far, but now you've seen it all, and there's no going back." As I stood there, paralyzed by the revelation, I realized something. The game wasn't over, it was just beginning. The world seemed to slow down as Karen's words sank in. She wasn't just some nosy neighbor. She had been pulling the strings behind the scenes all along. The FBI, the crate, everything. It had all been a smoke screen, and I had walked right into it.